Could be both.
Okay.
Have you been on the board of trustees before?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm on my second term.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
6
okay,
years
okay,
in.
Okay.
I just haven't volunteered here. Volunteered.
Sorry.
I'm Eva
Nice to meet
Henson.
you.
I'm with the city of Durango, the Housing Innovation Division.
Take off letters.
That's got the update logo on the front.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, yeah.
Good, how are you?
So,
Yes.
it's correct on that. He didn't know what to give me in terms of logo, so I threw them out.
So I don't have one for you, so you get this.
Yeah.
It's warm outside.
I know, I put my coat on this morning, got outside, I was like, just do it.
So we.
Check.
Thank you.
What's the order of events?
Just sit wherever you want to sit.
We'll introduce you.
Sit where you feel. It's for me, if I sit here?
Absolutely.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? How are you doing? Doing great. Thank you.
I don't know, we met.
Also, for future,
Rather
I'm
have
probably
minutes,
always be
we
printing
have-
them out unless I'm told otherwise, so.
Okay, yeah.
It'd be good to assume that they're printed every time.
I save them and I'm old fashioned because I can go back and say like.
Make notes, margin.
Yeah.
See, I'll see you.
How are you?
Look good. I don't, we have got a really.
Oh, I sent them yes, but.
So I wanted to be here.
Now, will we,
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
CDS? So
It's
we're
been
applying
almost
to
a
that.
year since we did that.
Yeah.
Yes.
CDOT is. We get money.
Yeah. How are you?
Well, we, get going.
I think so.
Sarah, JJ, you guys ready?
Sir.
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at, 2 PM. Thank you to everyone for attending and our guests as well. Thank you for your time and your presence. Sarah, could we have, or JJ, whoever is appropriate, could we have a roll call?
Absolutely. Marcia Porter,
Here, present.
Chuck Stevens,
Here.
Kim Baxter,
Who is absent, and that absence is excused.
Eva Henson.
Here.
Kathleen Sickles.
Here,
Brenna Moreland,
Here.
Mark Garcia,
He's absent, and that absence is excused as well.
Clark Craig. Here. Patrick Vaughn.
Here. Thank you, thank you. Next item is public comment. Do we have anybody from the public that we?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, we do still need to do disclosure of any conflicts of interest.
Oh, excuse me. So are there any conflicts of interest that need to be presented or raised?
Public comment, is it time?
Not yet,
Okay.
just a minute.
I have none to disclose, thank you.
I have none.
No conflicts, okay. Oh, I forgot to mention that Nicole Killian is dialed in as well. Nicole, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hello, everybody.
Hi. So now, public comment. So please, and please state your name.
Expand or?
Yeah.
It's like city council. My name's Karen Pontius. I live at 288 Animas View Drive, which is Animas View Mobile Home Park Co-op. So that's why I'm here today. To start getting involved because these are all the issues that we're concerned with too. We need to do with housing. And Eva, I've met you before and I know Marcia. So I don't really have anything other to say than I hope to add any information you might need from residents of a low-income park. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
My name is Lori Roberts. I've been coming to these meetings and I'm so gratified to see more public attention on housing. I am not commenting on the tenor or the content of what the Herald is doing, just the fact that housing is getting more attention. I appreciate that. I've been able to bring more members of the public. Last month, I had members from the NINA Neighbors in Need Alliance, and they're very interested in below market housing. I bugged a couple other folks to show up. The housing. What did they have? There wasn't a seminar, it was a candidate forum last night that Nina put on. The focus was on below market housing. And I think that this is a perfect entity to address below market housing. The free market can't really address below market housing without subsidization. So I think I'm very gratified that more interest is being paid to this important topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm Hilda Yazzie. I'm running for city council, and this topic is very important to us. That's why I came to you. I'm looking forward to listening to everything you have to offer. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Lisa Lopez, y'all know me, just here to let.
Great, great. Well, thank you all for attending today. Appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to attend. So thank you very much.
Sure, Vaughn.
Yes.
I just wanted to note, based on what somebody said last night, Nina and Project Moxie did a candidate forum on housing. And it was one of the best candidate forums I've ever seen because the questions were so specific. And as a candidate, sometimes you get really softball things like, tell us about yourself, or what are your 3 qualities that you really like? And this was like cutting to the chase. Like, have you read the 3-year strategy and what do you think of it? And, you know, it was really good. And there's an audio available from Project Moxie if anybody wants to listen to it. So I know some of you don't live in the city of Durango, of course, but it just was a really good exercise in learning. So.
Thank you. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes or edits to the agenda as presented? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
And motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
So motion and second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item is the consent agenda. And the consent agenda consists of the February minutes and the January financial statements. And I'd like to point out that Mark Garcia, while he isn't able to attend, he did communicate via email that he was comfortable with the statements as presented after reviewing them as treasurer. So are there any edits or changes to the financial statements?
Chair, I bring the attention on page 12, which is the fiscal overview, budget overview. I think if the initial that's reversed.
I think you're right. I remember seeing that. I remember make a note of it. Yes, it's a good catch.
So I think it's 3103 and 3104 labeled.
You guys have that?
But other than that, I have nothing else.
Okay. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to approve
I so moved
with that change. Excuse me.
with that change.
So second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously, thank you. Next item, Alliance updates. Number 1 is Catalyst Fund updates. Mike French and Sarah Tober. And since Mike isn't here, Sarah, it's all you.
It's all me. Okay, here we go. So the Catalyst Fund is about to be launched. We now have a full working committee. So we have good representation on that as well. And then we have a working group that is looking at the rubric and will be reviewing the LOI and projects. So the Catalyst Fund, if you don't know already, is specifically focused on pre-development and hoping to offset some of those costs, especially as it pertains to workforce housing projects. We were at about 350,000 with another commitment that I'm not sure if I can share yet or not. So yeah, okay. So we are at 350,000 currently, and there are works for fundraising. And then we are working on having a webpage on the Alliance that will explain what the Catalyst Fund is and will also house where the LOI will be launched. And then the LOI is where developers and contractors can go and fill out online the form for a project to be considered. So we are getting all those processes in place and fundraising in place. And we hope to have it officially launched next week. So that's where we stand with the Catalyst Fund. Any questions?
Sarah, you previously said some outreach had been done to foundations.
Yes.
And then, so I'm sure we'll hear if you're moving ahead in the process, or they said no, or they said yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
we're
okay.
still in the running with the foundations we've talked to for those funds. Some of them are not in a position to give those funds until the summer. So until then, we are still having those conversations and we're still being highly considered for them.
Any other questions for Sarah on that topic? I'd like to note for the record that Elizabeth Selking joined via Zoom. I guess that's what driving means it is. So Elizabeth, thank you. Welcome.
Elizabeth is serving on that working as well as Lisa.
Okay, great.
We're so grateful to have their housing expertise as a part of the Catalyst Fund.
Great. Next item is the eggs and issues event recap. Sarah, that's you again.
Yeah, I included in your packet, you saw the eggs and issues presentation. It was okay, well, we'll make sure that you all get a
It
copy
was a
of
separate
that.
email.
Yeah, you got it by email.
There's a lot of moving parts today, so you're gonna, but yeah. There is the eggs and issues presentation got sent out because it was such a good culmination of the same stakeholders in the RHA. So we feel like that can be a really good baseline for us in outreach and communications moving forward. So we had a packed house, even despite all of the snow and weather. We had great interactions with the community, especially those who didn't know about the many efforts that are going on and how we are all collaborating. We even met with firefighters afterwards as well, fire district. So there's a lot of community conversations still happening as a result of the eggs and issues. So thank you all for came out and supported it and spoke on the panel.
And I'd like to apologize that I was not able to attend. I was digging out my ranch east of Bayfield, and the snow was a little bit getting the better of me that day. So I apologize.
Well, and I think Jack Llewellyn said that was the largest turnout that they had seen at the Eggs and Issues event since pre-pandemic. I think there were over 100 people. That didn't include the virtual.
I thought it was great. I don't want to follow Eva ever again. Her shoes are so big. But no, it was really good. And I think we presented what is really happening, which is a unified front, and that I love not focusing on the need because people know, I think most people know the need depending on what metric you use. And we focused on what's happening. The one person who was really impassioned about that, why are you working on only workforce versus affordable? I think that's an issue that probably is out there. And I think that the number she cited was wrong. So I like to see what, when you put in the fact sheet about what is affordable, what is workforce. And, it was just, I think it showed how important that people feel about this issue. Really emotional.
I wanted to let our group know that I'm meeting with Christian Bernie from the Herald to put a story together to educate our community, educate our electeds, educate all involved, because there's a lot of different terminology that gets utilized. There's opportunity, I think, for us to do better about, consistency, but also what's on the website and those kind of things. And so I was supposed to meet with Christian tomorrow to put the story together. He's got a conflict, so we're going to meet next Tuesday. I'll be helping explain definitions. I shared with him your 101 from the Division of Housing as well to educate him before we sit down and have a deeper conversation. Because reporters, it's a complex topic, and I want to make sure for all of us that are advocating and doing the work that it's highlighted and the story comes across with those kind of explanations. Because I think there can be misunderstandings that happen. And so we just want to make sure that that's clear and covered. So Christian called me and reached out, and we're happy to put a story together.
It's also pushed us to put together some AMI charts, so that is very clear. Eva actually took a look at the first draft, and we're still reworking it with Project Moxie. And also getting input from Lisa as well on that. So again, we are hoping that the AMI charts that we present here in the next few days really solidify our understanding of what workforce housing AMI looks like moving forward. And they also push this fact sheet to what we talked about. So
Any other comment on it? Okay. Thank you. Next item is logo and website. Sarah, you're up again.
yeah, so the logo, we kind of did a soft launch, if you will, at the Eggs and Issues. And we're still, and it's on, you'll start seeing it slowly crop up on all of your materials. We had approval, pretty much unanimous approval on the color palette. So we're working on the content now for the website. So we don't have the website content in places. I realized going through this that this fact sheet is going to help inform some of the way that we talk about the work that we're doing. So I wanted to get that in place and our goals and first year in place before really moving that content into a website for folks to review before it launches. So we should have that in place by next week.
Questions, comments? This topic. It's actually a good segue into the next one, the RHA fact sheet. So why don't you jump into that?
Yes, let's talk about the fact. I think we were trying to put in the mission statement initially on it, and then we realized that we had conflicting ones, and so it's a little wonky. But Marcia had a great email to me earlier in related to what we could do for kind of a placeholder instead of having this statute at the top of page 2. We could instead have the Regional Housing Alliance of Plata County as a multi-jurisdictional governmental entity comprising of the towns of Bayfield and Benicia and the city of Durango and Plata County. Established in 2004, the Regional Housing Alliance, working with partners, funds workforce housing, is a centralized clearinghouse for information and develops policy and planning tools to support workforce housing project and initiatives. I think that would make for maybe a cleaner explanation on the top of page 2 versus what we've kind of had in place.
Something around supporting efforts might be good without me seeing the actual text, but just hearing it might be
Something around what?
supporting some component of that for sure.
Sarah and I talked about
Yeah.
this and I think there's a couple of things that go hand in hand. If you look at the bottom of page 2, it really talks about the goals, and that's an item on decision items down below. I think what we'd like to do is hold off on any action on this until next board meeting and have board members provide input to Sarah. So, and it's a little bit like herding cats, if you think about it, the size of this board. So I appreciate Sarah's efforts and patience in herding the cats. And it's not a derogatory explanation. It just is what it is, right? But I think it's a good start, but I think it would be helpful if you have comments or thoughts that need to be incorporated or you think need to be incorporated, please communicate with Sarah. Hopefully we can get a final draft in front of everybody. Any other thoughts, questions?
Do you need this fact sheet before then? Like, does not having our mission statement put together yet have implications for like getting our PR out or website out or anything like that?
I mean, I think this fact sheet is needed yesterday, right? Like everything. But especially like with the eggs and issues, I think it was like apparent that it would have been great to have that baseline. But there are a couple of moving parts on this, like the AMIs that we have in here that needs to be finalized with Project Moxie here in the next couple of days, and then we can plug that in. And then of course the goals, the timeline is going to get plugged in after today's meeting. So I think we're close. But we don't have any events necessarily that we would need this for between now and the next meeting. But I would assume that it would be helpful. This meeting, the reporter and things like that. So.
I specifically asked Sarah to get together with Jen to make sure that we are incorporating the latest and greatest information and tying the definitions, because they can be all over the map, even at the state level. They're conflicting with each other, right? So we need to hone in as best we can. So we're all seeing the same.
Agreed. Yeah, it's important to do it right. So I think, it can wait till the next meeting. I think if something pops up before then, I'll definitely, first.
Letters of support.
Yes, letters of support. And I didn't get a chance to grab Lisa before, but I'm hoping that she might be comfortable. The things that she was applying for that we supported. RHA.
Then I'm gonna jinx it.
I know.
So I applied to the Tober Division of Housing for some of their AHIF 23 funds, Affordable Housing Investment Funds. Money I applied for $10 million in first mortgage funding. And basically that would be to provide first mortgages for people who are purchasing affordability restricted properties. So typically we would call them deed restricted properties, but they could be affordability restricted through another mechanism, like maybe a community trust or whatnot. So what we've been finding is that people who are under the income limits that we put under the affordable or workforce umbrella cannot afford to purchase the homes that are being built at a price that's even close to what it costs to build, or even close to a subsidized and reduced price because the interest rates are so high. I mean, at 7% interest, basically, if you're going from 3% interest to 7% interest on a $300,000 mortgage, that's an increase of 46% in your monthly housing costs. And that's just brutal. And it's made it so that everything has come to a standstill in the entire mortgage industry and the entire real estate buying industry. And we still want to get people into these homes, into the homes that you guys are all talking about building. And one of the ways that we can do that is through financing mechanisms. And so we've applied for $10 million of funding from the state that we would be able to lend out at 3%. What we need from you guys is to build the housing so that we could finance that housing. So that's the most exciting, biggest one. We also applied for $3 million to support our manufactured mobile home loan program to help people purchase homes that are in manufactured home parks or that are difficult to finance but affixed to land. We're also working with Bank of Colorado to possibly be building or placing some manufactured homes on land or maybe in parks to be determined. So that's what we're working on. Really thank you guys so much for the support. I think it's a source, especially that $10 million in first mortgage funding. I'll be working with all of you to get that deployed. So, okay, yeah.
What's the time frame for finding out if you get the grant or a piece of it?
That's a really good question. I applied before the March 1st deadline. The state is actually generally pretty good about getting you an award letter, but then they're really slow at getting a contract. That has been that's been their MO. They might be different this time around. I'm not sure, but certainly we're in the application phase. I have no idea if they'll accept the application, if they will offer us anything. But that is what we have asked for and hoping for. So thank you very much for your support.
Cheers.
Did we jump into G3?
Yeah, we jumped ahead. We just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I like the idea. We can keep going from there.
I guess I had to focus on.
Maybe I didn't understand what I was doing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back and find.
Okay, we got that one out of the way.
I go to sleep during.
So, let's go to F. Fund balance updates.
The fund balance updates, we're still trying to find out what other regional housing authorities are doing for our best practices and compiling that. But we did, and I think this is a line item, but we did apply for a DOH grant specifically on this for technical assistance grant. And we asked specifically the fund balance grant writing, how to facilitate a potential tax for workforce housing. So we were able to get that application in this last week and appreciate the support of the City of Durango in that letter as well. So thank you. But that will hopefully help us as well with learning best practices for our fund balance. So that's it.
Okay.
How much was that one?
I'm sorry,
How much was that one? How much was?
how much was it? It's technical assistance, so there's not a dollar amount per se.
You don't apply for it.
Yeah, so we don't know the dollar amount.
Also, by way of updates of the board from the last meeting, we did begin, or rather we have almost finished the process of automating a lot of our payment systems. So thank you to Marcia and Mark for helping us with that. So our accountant has set up recurring payments for all the predictable expenses such as rent, certain contracts, and other things like that. So those are set up and they should be good to go. We've received digital approval from the two signees. And then we're also working on making sure that our bill pay system is set up. So my understanding is that the bill pay system through TBK Bank is still involves the mailing of physical checks, but no longer will it have to be us actually taking it to everyone and getting it signed. So we do have that system in place. So I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up about that.
Questions? On to the next item. This time we'll go to G. Okay. Item 1 is waiver of the 2022 audit and selection of auditor. JJ.
Yeah, so this came on the heels of a meeting with our accountant. She had two suggestions for us. The first one was that we seek a waiver for our audit for 2022. I think there's a grand total of $75 in income. If it's not that exact number, it's something very similar. And so she recommended that we instead do a financial review rather than a full audit. It should be more cost effective, time effective, easier on everyone. But it is something that the board would have to approve. In addition, we would have to still select I guess it wouldn't be auditor, but the financial reviewer, should we go with that route, or auditor if we go the other route. Her recommendation was that we use Frederick Zink and Associates. They have done our books previously, and so they know them. And we were still within my understanding is I believe it's a 5-year window when we have to then offer it up for bids again. So that was Carolyn Moeller, our accountant's recommendation.
Well, they did a really good job. They did on our kind of financial review audit that we had last year for 2021. I thought they did a really good job. So, and I understand that there's no reason to have an audit, just waive this audit for 2022. I mean, I'm certainly in favor of that.
I would agree with Zink. They also do the Pine River Library in Bayfield, which I served as treasurer on the board for quite a few years. And they always did our audits and did a wonderful job. Their presentation was great. Everything was always very easy to understand. I agree on the not doing taxes.
So Chair, I would move that we waive the 2022 audit and select, I guess it's Frederick Zink as our official auditor,
Second.
Financial reviewer.
financial reviewer.
I think that's in charge of this.
I'll second that.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Those opposed? Abstained? Okay, passes unanimously. RHA Goals, I guess this one's mine. When I was appointed chair last month, I sat down that evening and started really kind of ruminating about, okay, what are the things that are important in my mind? And then Sarah was the recipient of my. And so I sent her this kind of, full page laundry list of bullet items. And it's no revelation, and it wasn't in any particular importance of order, but the reality is there's just a lot of things, that we need to do as a group. And that got me thinking, we really need a set of goals for 2023. I know we're partway into the year, but I think as a board, we really need to focus on what are we going to try to do this year. I asked Sarah to put it together, but I gave her some parameters, and I guess I took some liberty here, but I figured we needed something to talk about today on this topic. And she has talked to a lot of you about, your thoughts on the RHA, where you think it's at, where it needs to go. So I asked her to use that, but it also has to tie to the Economic Alliance and their housing goals, and especially the 3-year workforce housing investment strategy, because we are wedded to that market, right? And so I also said, okay, our goals need to be relevant to what we need to do. They need to be challenging, but achievable. Worst thing you can do in my mind is set goals that you can't achieve, just to set goals. That's a waste of time. And we need to be able to track these things. And some of these are candidly going to be sort of multi-year goals where we're going to have to track the progress along the way. But what I envision is having something that's a list of goals or tasks or targets, if you will, and track those and see month by month, okay, where are we at? What progress have we made? And maybe it's every other month, but we need to be on task. And so, I think finally, these goals would be incorporated into the fact sheet, or the kind of the key things would be in the fact sheet. And I really see the fact sheet as an evolving document anyway, because circumstances change. So Sarah put together a draft. She and I went back and forth on it. I think Mike had input on it as well. So it's here for your review. We can accept and approve today, or we can wait to the April meeting. I defer to the board on this topic. I just think that we need to have something tangible. I'll get off my.
I like what I see. I like what I see. So thank you for putting this together.
Any other thoughts, and I know you haven't had a whole lot of time to look at this, though. I apologize, but I think it's time's wasting, if you will, because we're partway through the year.
First of all, I appreciate this immensely, because I think the RHA, until we got capacity, yay, got that dialed in. We're the funder of the capacity and we have a plan. So that marriage is great. And I really appreciate this, because I think the 4 that I saw really encapsulate, lots of discussion to be had, that this is what we're doing. We're centralizing resources. We're going to get the benchmark. Where are we at with units? We're, talking about Prop 1, 2, 3. I mean, we're becoming a centralized information and resources. We are funding housing vis-a-vis Catalyst Fund, perhaps other means. Uniting around policy. We've had a lot of discussion about that, where that goes and what that looks like. I think we're trying to figure that out. And then we're supporting mostly the municipalities, but then today a lot supporting Homes Fund. I mean, I think it's great. And I liked this objectives that went with it. And I think this will help the public understand when they say, why is La Plata County giving X amount? Why is Ignacio giving X amount? We can say, here's what we're doing. And that's what's been missing. So I thought it was great.
Any other thoughts, questions, concerns?
I just want to make sure I'm on the right page. So I have this page 16. Is that correct? And then I also have,
Labeled G2.
G2.
So
Yeah.
there's two different things. One is the G2 label is really our goals
Okay.
or objectives, goals and objectives for the year. I use those interchangeably. I know some people hate that, but I don't. So you got what you got, right? But the flip side of this is the fact sheet really is for the general public to understand what some of the definitions are, and then tie in our goals on the bottom of the fact sheet, at least some of the key ones.
so the one thing I always notice about goals that we have them and then the steps to get there. So, and that doesn't necessarily have to be on the website, but centralized area housing information and resources, then how are you gonna get there?
That's what this is.
Yeah, okay. That's why I just want to make sure of that,
And I think the conversation was that we would take these high level bullet points and put them on the fact sheet. And then reference this particular document that has a higher level of detail, which would be on the website. And the only thing I would add is that I like the crossing things off. That's what my wife does with her lists. So, but it'd be nice to know when we accomplish that. Just like a month, year. And so that way we know when that started. So
Great, that's a great comment.
One thing I would like to see, and I like this, I think it works perfectly, maybe to add something where we're working with, like who the organizations are we're working with. So, we have Homes Fund, that's one place that you put on your website. I think somebody mentioned Big Colorado. That's helping with that, that might be another organization that helps with this. It could be who's doing the construction, if we can compile it all into like one little hub on the website.
Would that be a website issue and a fact sheet issue rather than a goals issue?
It could be both. I don't know. Your goal on your website. I don't know.
Yeah,
Or the website be a goal.
I kind of personally, I kind of see that as a fact item that's on the fact sheet and the website. Because our goals are targets for us to get.
So I like these 8 items. I think they're good. We may have to put maybe something a little different for a line specific. And maybe we like, fast track. Maybe we add another couple of words to define that.
Okay.
But I think these 8 are great. And I think we could move forward with this. We can always edit it and update it 6 months from now.
Chair,
Yes.
I just want to dovetail off of what Mr. Craig. Yeah, on the fast track, because I'm assuming we're talking about land use processes. Okay, so I made that assumption and I wrote a little note here, but I think we should start.
Yeah, I mean, this is a part of our scope with the Alliance and the RHA. It's part of the scope of work that was detailed there. But this is basically to help fast track when possible, where possible. And again, being kind of a linchpin, getting the different stakeholders to be talking and to help move things along quickly when possible is definitely in our prerogative.
And maybe it's because of my IT background, but when I see fast track as a standalone, I think of a company that does fiber.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, and I'm not in IT, but I was trying to figure out what fast track was.
Yeah.
So Sarah, could you add a little bit of explanation to some of these bullet points to give folks that, that it's clear that, this is what it pertains to?
Yeah, and I think
not
there was a
know
little
that.
bit of
That's why I made the suggestion. I did, because I thought that meant something.
I think there's a little bit of a thought of having some flexibility there, because whether it is working with the county or whether it is working with the municipality, and we can kind of jump in and help out, and we can better define like what it is that we did that we're now able to say this is how we fast track projects. But not having that history, it's be really hard for us to say, fast track with Durango, fast track, what exactly would.
So for me, it's fast track land use and permitting. And that kind of
Yeah.
falls across all boundaries. Am I correct that these 8 would then go on that fact sheet?
If they fit, or maybe there's if there's a priority that you guys want to put on that fact sheet, we can put all of them on that fact sheet, honestly. I'm happy to do so.
Well, I guess, do we need the alliance, are the alliance specific goals, RHA goals?
We're wet at the hip on them.
Yeah.
Catalyst Fund Committee and application and funding, key part of fast tracking, if you will.
So I guess it's a little redundant with under, like, it seems like some of these things are already included, so I don't know that, I think they need to be captured. But I don't know how to capture them, but are they?
I would rely on Sarah to kind of walk through this and take these and put them into the goals and indicate if they're line specific,
There you go. That works.
if that works for the board.
Yeah.
I would
Consistency.
also suggest, and I haven't had a chance to digest all of the information on this sheet, but making sure that we are connecting it and aligning it with whatever's in the 3-year workforce investment strategy. And so like fast track wasn't in the 3-year workforce investment strategy as an example, right? So I would probably want to look at that report and think about ways to phrase that. Maybe it's more around efficiencies and improving and enhancing processes around development review, use code, policy, regulation, things like that, versus using the terminology fast track. The state has been saying that, and I think they're going to backpedal a little bit with Prop 123. We'll know with the workshop on Tuesday, but there was some perception that things would have to be approved and permits issued within like 90 days. I mean, there was just some like thing, that's impossible. That's impossible. I mean, when you have a planning commission and a public hearing and it's like, that's just not even realistic. So I'd love to think a little bit more and offer some suggestions too on how we could enhance some of that. And maybe the part about the alliance specific is more around the 3-year workforce investment strategy, but it's tied to our partnership with the alliance or something. I don't know.
I think that's valid. And in fact, that's specifically what I asked Sarah to do, is incorporate the goals within the 3-year workforce housing strategy into this, as well as this discussion points that she had with all of you. She talked to you guys, because it's a combination of both, honestly.
And
What I see is that the alliance specific, maybe the title, maybe that heading is just different of what are we buying from the, what are we contracting to get done through the alliance? Because like the website is the RHA website, but we're contracting with you to do public outreach work, so it's not that that's separate from us. So I think it's just the head.
Why don't I suggest this, that Sarah try to incorporate some of these comments and make edits and kick it over to the group via email within the next week, if that's possible. And then we can just say yay or nay on the email.
I like that.
I like that. I like that idea. And one of the things too, Sarah, to think in mind about is, when we have to wrap up year end and we're thinking about those timelines and to Craig's points about where can we pinpoint how we achieved what, and some things may take longer, some things may be ongoing, some things may be start to finish. But we all will need to report back to our jurisdictions when we go to do the funding agreement and the purposes of budget appropriations and things like that for 24 and then eventually 25. And I think this is getting us much more concrete direction to be able to go back to our municipalities and have these conversations like in a study session or something versus just going to council and asking for the funding. So I think that could be informative of this. So really excited to start to see that position. So thank you
So I
guys.
just a comment, just because the fast track came up, if we think that's a company in this area, so is everybody else. And as staff, I am somewhat always worried that that's not the intent. The intent is to remove barriers. And look for certified builders, certified, that understand the process, is not necessarily, it's just, when you say fast track, I can just imagine some of the builders we're working with, everybody thinks they get to jump on that boat. So I think that what I like to do is maybe just change the language a little bit. And it can be what that intends, but you know, a certified or a process where they're eligible for this type of barrier removing process. And the only reason is, I mean, I can think of some, you know, really, just in the last couple of years, some really good projects that went through all the right steps, some projects that are just beaten down the door, and they're just, you just got to get your stuff right first.
That makes total sense. I think the word fast track has actually come from the alliance itself. And so we're going to have to talk to the alliance as well to maybe come up with a different term. I agree with you. And candidly, I didn't think about fast track communications. I should have. But maybe that's something that you can talk to Mike and the alliance, and we can come up with a more generic term that is appropriate and it fits for both groups.
The other thing is, we had this conversation at the last meeting, so for Chuck's benefit and the public benefit too, is that at some point we really need, if we're gonna do that, expedite, remove barriers, and then Prop 123 is in here too. I left last meeting going like, how? Because all our codes are so different. And so, you know, is that like, Sarah, guess what? You get to read all our codes and suggest how we, you know, fast track, or, you know, what's the how? And we don't have to decide that now, but it's super complex because, you know, the county code is different than your code, is different than yours and yours. And you're already, I think, in the process of doing this anyway. So I'm just putting it out there that it sounds really easy to do. We might want to have a conversation that gets under the hood about how would this be done? Not now, but because I think it stays on the list, but.
I would be very happy to be involved in that conversation because I think there's a way to involve the private sector for those who actually do it right.
Yeah.
Know how to do it right.
Sure.
To give advice, the ones that do it in the county, the ones that do it in the city, Bayfield, Ignacio. So you get one of those people that are in the trenches, if you will, to advise you. But you select the folks that know what they're doing, the people that do it right. And you all know who they are, right? So you can select them, and I'm sure if you want to participate. So. Great. Well, we already covered G3, so actually, before we leave G2, if everybody could, you know, provide your comments to Sarah, and Sarah, if you could turn that around quickly.
Yes.
Try to get this one.
There is a decision item with the letters of support as it pertains to how we facilitated this last round of letters of support. There could have even been more support that we could have given to the community. But because it is a process of asking all the directors for approval and reviewing it, we wanted to put it in front of the board that you all consider that a different process to the letters of support so that we can turn them around more quickly.
You support that?
Yeah. So I guess what we could do is, I guess what we're putting in front here is that, you know, it's not always expedient to like have it done the way that we did that. However, it was necessary to get a letter of support in on time. So doing it by email in that manner, do we want to do that process again like that? Do we want to give some latitude for letters of support as it pertains to area housing or maybe specific organizations that we?
So we've ran into the same challenge, and so especially as all these monies are coming up. So we kind of made maybe an administrative decision. I hope the board agreed that there's some letters that came, we didn't have a timeline to get back to the board. And so if it was not a conflict with anything that Bayfield was doing, or we felt that it basically matched our goals, then we went ahead and signed it and presented it to the board. And anything that did have time to go to the board, went to the board. You know, and I think that would depend on this board, how they choose that. But we feel that there were some really necessary letters that should have went out. We just didn't have time to get them to the board in the timeline that they had.
We did the same thing. Even this morning. So I would, Chair, I would suggest that we do give them the latitude to support, to write support letters with that align with our goals. We just talked about the goals and that aligns in here for them to be able to have that latitude to do that.
So what's the feedback loop to the board then? And I'm sorry that I missed the first.
Allow them the
So
latitude to go ahead and make those decisions as long as it aligns with what.
yeah, I understand that, but then when do we as a board find out that this action took place? What I'm asking.
Probably like right now where she's notifying us or maybe by email. I think that's a good question.
But it wouldn't require the directors to send back approval necessarily. Like we would say, we're sending this letter of support, but it wouldn't require a vote via email.
Which I don't think we can do anyway based on our bylaws, can we? I don't think we can vote on email. And don't forget, when we do reply all, it becomes an open
Yeah,
meeting.
that's right.
So we've really got to watch all of that.
I'm fine with it. I'm just, you know, I'm balancing what I'm hearing against our own internal processes.
Right.
And because we did one today, I mean, we're gonna ratify our letter of support.
Yeah, next week.
The request was on Monday and it needs to be done by tomorrow. So we have a process, but I'm just trying to think, I always make sure my board knows that this is happening. And I feel like as long as I know that this is happening and I'm given the opportunity to raise an objection if I have a question, you know, so if the letter comes in and it aligns with the goals and you do the draft, I guess I'm just asking, do I get to see that? Where do I get to see that?
So do you get to object? Yeah, and if you object, maybe it's time to come back to actually have a meeting.
Yeah.
For any
But
continuation.
it could blow up behind.
Yeah.
See, so I get the balancing act. I guess I'm trying to figure out where this board gets alerted that, hey, we're gonna launch this letter out.
So can they send things to, like an email, a group email, even though it's not a meeting? And if something comes up, you take it upon yourself to reach out to Sarah.
I
think
would
that's
be
a
fine
good-
with that.
Yes.
good process.
I just wanted to.
Yeah.
She can pull back and say it needs to come back to the board.
Yep. So don't hit reply all, say like, I'm concerned about this, here's why, and that'll be a cue for you that it's not.
It'll stop the
I like
letter.
If they send the emails blind CC'd, it doesn't, you don't see the other participants. So if you just send those blind CC, then we don't have to worry about the file.
Yeah.
As we learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yes,
I think that all makes sense. I mean, I could see an instance where I'll speak for myself. When this issue came up with Homes Fund, I mean, they're doing great work in the community and it's known. We all feel really comfortable with that.
Mhm.
But if it's somebody that's new or, you know, just doesn't have a proven track record and there's a short fuse, then I'm gonna have some questions about it, right? And so I think we should legitimately be able to put the brakes on it, you know, and say, okay, you know, some background here.
And we also, just to be transparent, we may be sometimes supporting letters where all of us are going after probably more the jurisdictions frankly than the county, but where we're competing. And so you could have a letter, you know, and I just think that that's something to put out there. It's not bad at all, but just to say that, you know, that could happen for sure, especially with all these funds coming down.
I think ultimately, though, I think it's incumbent upon the RHA to try to weed through that competition.
Yes.
And go with, you know, the project that's going to give the best shot at being successful. Because that's our job, is to get units on the ground and not compete. And to the extent that we can provide a unified voice, I think that's a lot stronger than you know, 4 different entities chasing, you know, a grant, you know. Again.
About those grants where you have, they're so large that, and their minimum, like, for example, it's 75 million and you have a 10 million limit for each applicant. Then why wouldn't you do 4?
But maybe we do
You know
4,
what I mean?
maybe we do 4 together through the RHA somehow. That's my point, is we go after 40 million bucks. collectively and cite the different entities involved within the RHA. I think that has more power at the state level than it does on an individual basis. And again, my bottom line, and I said this to Sarah in my long email to her, is at the end of the day, it's about getting units on the ground.
That's right.
That are safe and meet the need. And who does it and how we get there, I'm agnostic. We need units.
I just didn't want to take, like, if there's 4 homes funds, for example, not necessarily that per se, but if there was 4 of them and we're not doing the project, but they're doing the project, they want, letters of support from us, why wouldn't we do to all 4 of them if there's enough money in that pot for all 4? That was my only concern. I don't want to limit it to just one because we don't want them to compete with each other. We want all 4 of them to get the money. So all 4 of those organizations can put houses on the ground.
I think we're saying the same thing.
I think so too.
Could we also include a timeline on this action item in terms of if the staff will send to the board if there's going to write this letter of support, or this letter of support has been requested from us and you have 24 hours to let us know if there's an issue,
I think that's good.
I think you're gonna know what the timeline is, probably more than we will, but I would say, it's gotta be 24 to 48 hours, not hanging out there forever.
Yeah. I mean, I still support that anything be brought to the board if it is conducive with our meetings and their timeline of their needs, but if not, then sending an email to everyone, letting you know, and you have 24 to 48 hours, depending on, maybe that's articulated in the email, whether we have 24-hour window or 48-hour window. And then if I don't hear anything back, we'll assume that there's no issues.
I mean, I missed the time frame of the logo, so. It's like end of day. I missed that.
Do you think that we need to have, since we're making sure that these letters of support align with our mission, that we need to make sure that we have what that mission is to match the 2, just in our bylaws or whatever? So there's clarification on there.
Yes, you need a mission.
We do, because I think it's going to be repetitive every time a support letter is written. And we want to make sure that the team and the staff have that capacity to be able to just get these letters out the door, and that's not a barrier. Because they're going to question what they're putting in the letter and how it's framed and articulated each time right now until we actually get something in place.
Well, we discovered that there seems to be a couple of different versions running around. So what I would suggest is, Sarah, you find the ones that are floating around and bring them to the board next month, and we go through this and just finalize it.
So we know
Just a tiny bit of history. We have 2, I think, that are out there floating that you guys found, right? And then at our retreat we had in 21, we didn't do a mission statement, right? I don't think we did. That was the retreat where we were going to decide whether we stayed together, and we said yes, but I don't think we got a mission statement done. So we do, maybe that's what we could do at the next meeting, is as we're looking at the fact sheet. So I don't think it's going to be that hard. The ones that I saw encapsulate what we're doing is little word tweaks.
I think there's a whole new board here.
Yeah, I know. We were, yeah, totally.
So would the board be opposed to Sarah and I working together to look at those 2 and try to formulate one to bring to the board? Okay. That then, we can throw the darts at and figure it out.
Mr. Chair, we will also still need a motion regarding the letters of support policy.
So do I have a motion?
I will, go ahead.
You want a motion on the letters that you presented and then a policy discussion?
No, on the establishment of the policy that I think discussed.
I'll let you take a
No,
crack at
I
it.
was just making sure for clarity what he.
Okay, I move that we, excuse me, the RHA put in place a policy to first and foremost accept letters at our meetings and vet them and approve them. If that is not possible, then we can approve them over email with us responding to the director, to the housing manager,
With objection.
with any objections
Yeah.
within 48 hours. Does that work?
24 to 48 hours.
24, 48, probably 24 maybe.
We
I would do, yeah, 24 to 48. Okay, I like that. Okay. I hope that encapsulates all the different ideas.
That exclude weekends.
I'll second that.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. I would offer a friendly amendment and make it 24 hours, just because 24 to 48 is not a definition. So
Okay,
it needs
that's
to be defined.
I accept that.
So there's a motion with an amendment on the floor. Any other comments or questions? Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? None, passes unanimously.
For the record, who was the second on that? Sorry.
I did.
Oh, thank you.
We're on to G4, LC third-party evaluation. Sarah?
Yes, so you'll see in your packet about FLC's mortgage assistance program that they've launched, and the question that they had for us is this. We've already begun seeing requests from employees for clarification on if they qualify for our new mortgage assistant program that requires interpretation of the rules in ways that cannot necessarily be written. Because there are so many unique circumstances that can exist financially and personally, FLC is considering how to review these unique situations, and a board member recommended reaching out to the RHA to see if they have a committee in place who could weigh in on items of this type. The thought being, it would be ideal to have a third party involved in these sorts of appeals, and an RHA would be a reasonable source of input due to their expertise and function. Additionally, because I was asking if Lisa could do that too potentially, but she is involved as the ED of the loan issuer. So she already has input, but she's not a third party as well. So that was put in front for us to consider. So
What are we being asked to do?
so it would be if we had a committee or wanted to form a committee that would help with these mortgage assistance programs and weighing in specifically for the FLC, but it could be something that's used for other organizations around town. But if they need a third party to weigh in on if somebody is eligible or not.
I can chime in. I'll start.
Yeah.
And it's good that Lisa's here too. I met with Fort Lewis College and Kelsey back in January when I was first hired. And the foundation was giving the contribution, which is really exciting. And it's taken them quite some time, right? There's a lot of details. There's a lot of nuances to think about when you're thinking about an employee-driven down payment assistance program. I've gone through a couple of these with a couple of different organizations. And of course, one thing that always comes up is what if I don't work for you anymore? Right? What happens? Do I have to pay it back? When do I have to pay it back? Obviously, there's clauses in if you refinance or something like that. But this program is fairly fresh. And if they're already getting, I think, applicants that are struggling to achieve and accomplish getting their down payment assistance, before you want to have a third party reviewing these and making informative decisions on something that I'm not even in tune with their program, I don't know their criteria or how that ended up formalizing, but I would be hesitant to be on a committee to want to review something. I think they have a committee that helps review this that got the funding. If they're having some challenges with what they've already put in place, they need to reevaluate the program. I don't know how many barriers or how many people are already being impacted by not getting funding or what that looks like or what the challenge is without enough information, but.
We don't have the expertise in this board either. So
Yeah, I don't know what we would be determined.
I don't know if you have anything to do, but underwriting the loan, I don't know. They're having trouble getting loans out the door, or what do you think it is? What is it?
So I guess I'm not reading the full thing, so I'm not sure exactly what Kelsey was getting at, but if someone has an unusual circumstance where they don't fit quite within the box, but kind of close enough to be considered, we have a loan committee.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That is composed of outside people who can weigh in and say like, okay, yeah, we could make an exception to this rule for this person or not. So we have that.
So they have.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm sure there'll be circumstances, as you know, with your guys' team where it's like, they make $1,500 too much.
Right,
You know, or something.
Yeah, a variety of reasons why someone might not fit within our already written policies. And that's why we have our loan committees, so that we have that extra level of review beyond the staff review, and they can move up, overcome
Yeah,
what is in the policies.
I kind of feel like we would be the bad guy
Mhm.
with really no understanding of what they're doing.
And so it's really.
Bad guy or the-
Who was
Way too lenient.
Or the way,
charged to form a committee and accomplish that.
Or just ask us.
Or ask you. That's what I'm thinking. It's just ask you.
I mean,
That's what I said.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
When it's not that we're already involved. And if they are the program that we're administering,
I think, yes,
then
and I think that was the
yes,
concern
we
that.
have ways of getting past barriers, basically going through our loan committee.
So I
And if
would,
there's something else that she's referring to, some other.
She was thinking that there was a need for a third party that is not involved with you or with FLC.
And our loan committee, you know, they are our loan committee, but they're not people who are on our staff.
Are they thinking of a third party to help the homeowner understand things or for the, okay.
No,
it's
it's just for
the
decisions, it's for appeals specifically.
so
Yeah, she's
I
not,
would, say refer back to the
Yeah.
structure they already have.
Yeah.
So,
they may not be aware of it.
Sense.
So it's a no, but thank you for asking and thinking of us, but a no.
So again, I apologize for being new, but that was on decision. So do we have to take a formal motion or not?
I don't see why it's a formal motion item personally. I think it's just.
When somebody wants to make a motion to go for it.
Unless y'all
We
want-
probably should, because we didn't change the agenda item to put it on consent or discussion.
You want to make a motion?
I'll try again. I would like to make a motion that we inform Fort Lewis College that we thank them for thinking of us, but at this time, we don't feel like that's an appropriate role for the RHA, and we encourage them to talk to the committee that's already in place.
Second.
Okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Thank you all. Appreciate that. Okay. Discussion updates. Certain regional projects and funding. It has my name on it, but Sarah updated this. So I think I passed the ball.
Okay, yeah, we just had a view on the grants matrix. You'll see just a few highlighted areas that have been updated since the last.
Did you pull that up on the screen?
It's not part of the packet, so I'll have to, we're all right with me including non-packet materials on the screen.
Didn't you just send that email?
Yeah, it was just sent yesterday.
Was JJ on that?
I was,
Yes, he
yes,
was,
yeah.
but it's not been a formal part of the packet in the past, so
Yeah, but
we
I
can
think
start.
it'd be helpful
making
for
it.
the folks in the audience to see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no problem showing something that's not in the packet. That's fine.
Oh, I think that's okay.
You can bring
We
it up.
can start making that a packet moving into the next meeting as well.
All right, should be coming up on the screen now.
Make it a little bigger.
We'll cooperate.
I'll just start talking about ones that have been. So for Bayfield, HB 22-1304 and 1377, they submitted their application on February 28th. And that's another example where clients provided a letter of support and the RHA could have, if we technically we weren't asked, but we could have put that out, that we could have supported that. And then for Durango, HB 21-1117, February 21st, The city appropriated a 5% match and contracted with group policy research with and project kickoff meeting. Project kickoff meeting was on March 1st, excuse me.
Can I stop you there?
Yes.
How did the kickoff meeting go? Eva?
It's a big project. Fortunate that we have root policy on board. They have helped a few other communities with inclusionary zoning. And looking at their code and policy regulation about what that entails. But staff has spent a tremendous amount of time evaluating and navigating best practices and things that don't work with Fair Share over the last year. So I think it'll be informative to what that starts to look like as far as what we have to adopt and implement as part of this with our zoning and code as well. So the deliverables potentially will be a pretty extensive feasibility study happening the next 2 to 3 months. We have to provide a lot of data, a lot of construction, what has been built in the last 3 to 5 years. We don't have a lot of pro forma directly from developers on the project. So we're building a matrix of key stakeholders and components that can help inform that. And then several other tasks start to tick along as we move forward with the feasibility. The other piece with our inclusionary zoning is rental development is currently exempt. Statutorily, that was illegal at the time the inclusionary zoning was adopted. And so we are currently looking at what that component would look like to become compliant with state law with having inclusionary zoning with rental development. And it may not look the same as ownership, certainly might look different. And that ties into Proposition 123 as well, because it'll have part of efficient review processes that we have to put in place. It doesn't mean fast tracking, but we have to start to work on efficient review processes. So I'm on a cross-functional team that involves utilities, public works, community development staff, housing staff, and we are doing rubrics. We're actually using planned development processes, which are one of our more complex development review processes, including several public hearings with planning commission, as well as city council, and then administrative staff time. And what's happening is that our code is almost too rigid. And so folks are going through the plan development process and it's causing more time and more costs for them. And so it's not making anything faster for them. And most of the projects that are going through a planned development are not meeting code. And so when you think about efficient review processes, if it meets code, we can come up with a process to get you through a pipeline. We can certainly come up through a process accelerated if you do workforce and affordable housing. But if you're not going to meet code or what our regulations entail, then how do we treat you? How do we review your project? How do we inform what the process would look like? And that's where the state, I think, Prop 123, we have a lot of questions because everyone's going to be unique and different in that sense. But root policy is helping along the way. We'll have lots of outreach and engagement with the community on this process. We are building a website to track the project as well, so that the public can be informed with this and find information that's accurate. And then we'll be going before planning commission and city council along.
Thank you. Sure.
Do you want to go back to Bayfield at all and ask?
Can I do an infomercial for a second?
Yeah.
Just because it's so great to have members of the public. These are state grants. So in the column that says grant name, those are state grants. You guys probably know this because I know a lot of you track all this, but so we've all been applying for grants for various projects, and Pat started this process and it's being taken over by Sarah to help track on where all these grants are, which fits in one of our goals, I would say. So little explanatory moment.
Is a link to that be in your minutes then for the document?
We can make it.
I think that could be possible for sure. Yeah.
I can't see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry, Katie.
Oh,
And
no
then-
worries.
And then we have,
Heard a lot about Cinnamon Heights. This is infrastructure for 30 deed restricted townhomes that we have lots that we purchase.
Does Nicole have an idea of timeline? I think she's on.
She's on.
With the
Oh, yeah, she's up.
Nicole, do you have any sense of what that'll look like for them reviewing all these grant application submittals that they've received?
I don't, they haven't told me. I know that they stopped the process. They were gonna accept applications all through 2023 and they got through January and February and paused it. So I'm not sure when we're gonna hear back from them.
Because as you know, the thing I was thinking about with West Side also, I think getting theirs submitted. The last I had heard from the state in the January round, they had received 98. Well, December, they received 98 LOIs. They got the 98 applications and the ask was for 575 million and the program only had 375 million. And then they asked applicants to come this last round in February. And so I'm thinking they're going to have a lot to look through to make some interesting decisions of like, because I think the reason they saw such a large ask, and you know this, Nicole, but it was up to $10 million. So I think a lot of applications went in for the full 10 million.
Yeah.
And so they're going to have to vet through reducing those or seeing where they can cut things, I guess. I don't know. But you guys went in for 2.6.
They actually went in for 2.8. They had to reduce it.
Yeah, we had to reduce it because the match was larger. This one was a 25 match, so we had to reduce the ask in order to cover the match.
There was a percentage that we had to meet.
Yeah, sure. And that was what was interesting about House Bill 1271. The planning grant was a 25% match, but the IHOA is a 20% match. So
And this one's 25 as well, so.
Sarah, keep going.
And then the only other one that had an update was La Plata County, the West Side Mobile Home Park, and it's moving forward.
Yeah, we got a call. I can't remember the gentleman's name from the state. He called us, I think it was last week, and it was the same thing. I think they asked us for 3 million. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of what would happen if you didn't get all three kind of questioning. So.
And we also included, I went ahead and summed all of the amounts requested, just so we have that. So see that this is 24 million in state funds with everything. And we're going to be including a second tab for funding opportunities so that we have the things that are coming down the pipeline start happening in the second tab as well.
the only suggestion I would probably have with that is for City of Durango, the 9 million that was originally asked for with the congressional funding from 2022. We received the 3 million. And so that 9 million, I feel like is going to inflate that number potentially, or is it off of the 3 million number? I just can't see all, I can't see all.
No, you know what? Yeah, we should go ahead and.
Yeah, we should just, we should just change that one, just so it.
I think that's a common theme throughout. So
Yeah.
Sarah, I think you're gonna have to do a little analysis of that.
Yes.
And maybe you have the original ask and then.
I was just.
What they call it.
Revised ask or something like that.
Read my mind, that's what I wrote in.
So the LOIs are always going to be a higher number.
Sure.
And then that, what we get asked to move forward with is kind of more of the realistic number. And then what we get awarded could vary.
Very as well.
So I'll have 3 columns for you.
There we go. Great. Anything else on the current regional projects and stuff? Not, next item, Prop 123, Eva.
Prop 123, lots of information. And I think they are trying to compile quickly. They have put a website together at the state level with DOLA and the Division of Housing. I have recently inquired to them twice. I've not received a response from the state. And then I got the email from Marcia, and I was also looking at other emails, and it came in at like 9 o'clock of like, they're putting a workshop together very quickly.
Good.
For 2 hours next Tuesday on the 15th from noon to 2. They did identify that there was going to be limited capacity. My guess is with virtual, it's probably 100 participants or something. No, it was Thursday.
It's actually Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. We have 3 days.
There we go.
Okay.
Wednesday.
All right.
The 15th, I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
Right?
Wednesday,
Sorry.
19th, noon to 2. Yep.
Okay. So Nicole, were you able to get registered? Are you gonna try and attend?
Yeah, I've registered.
Okay.
Thank you for sending that.
I've registered.
I
to attend.
registered.
Okay, great. So we'll have some capacity in case somebody wasn't able to attend it. But I had a lot of specific questions for them. And so when you were able to register, it gave you some fields that you could fill in and ask some of your questions. I think one of the biggest questions that they're probably getting inquiries about is this baseline and creating your inventory for what exists. Durango in particular shows 1,700 units, and I have 576 in my inventory that I've looked and double checked reception numbers. So we're 1,000 units off, and that would impact what our 3% requirement would be on the baseline for the next 3 years. I don't know if anybody else is off that much. Maybe the inventory isn't as big, so you guys can probably check it and be a little more accurate. I have a feeling some might be county, some might be city, that they're crisscrossing. I met with Housing Solutions of the Southwest on Monday this week to go over their inventory, and then Mercy Housing. I've gotten their inventory as well as the Volunteers of America inventory, and then I have our own inventory for ownership. So between that, we're not at 1,700 units. So I don't know if they're counting mobile homes. I don't know what they're calculating.
Region 9 was saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody.
That's what I figured.
Everybody who was at the housing meeting last Friday was saying
Scrambling.
all the numbers are off for them, so they're not accurate. But it does state that we can go back to them about our baseline technically.
Yes. But what, so some of my questions for the workshop in particular was, whose data are you going to trust? And what level of detail can we provide to the state to verify that what we have is accurate? And so at the city level, there's not been one good source of information. And if I go to CHAPA's website, it's also incorrect. So we have gone through our GIS and reception numbers right now and are verifying by hand all of the information. I don't know what the county is planning on doing or others, but I'm kind of waiting till we get to Tuesday and do the workshop to really get some more insight on the information. But they'll talk more about the efficient review processes, I'm sure. So what that'll look like, and I'll kind of gauge if they're starting to do fast tracking or still using that terminology. So I think between the representatives that we've all discussed, we can certainly bring back more information at the next meeting to continue to communicate with everyone about what this looks like.
Yeah, I would believe that if Durango is one example of a jurisdiction that has conflict with the numbers, it's going to be magnified exponentially across the state, right?
What did they use?
We don't know. And,
Oh, that's
and
what it's
that
gonna
was
come
that
out.
was the 2 emails that I sent to the Division of Housing. Email inbox was just, can you provide to me what you're using so that I can cross-check what I have to just compare apples and oranges. I'm just kind of I just need to start to see what you have in your list, because quickly something would jump out to me between 1,000 units and us not having that. So I'm there's something, I can't figure out what it is. And then the area median income will be another factor if you want to adopt what they have versus what we can prove we want to use as well, which will help with the AMI table. So
They used the American Community Survey 2017 to 2021. And then the comprehensive housing affordability strategies are estimates and simply provides the baseline based on the locality's own AMI.
interesting.
Anything else on
Nope.
23?
It's just a
So,
lot of
so
swirling.
maybe we'll know a little bit more at the next meeting.
We should know.
Maybe. Okay, great. Anything else on 123 from the group?
And we agreed to keep this on the agenda as an ongoing topic.
Absolutely.
So I may have information to provide, or I'll just continue to keep you guys
Actually,
apprised.
I do.
Okay.
One thing that Mr. Porter Norton and I have been talking about is, frankly, the county is looking at this and we're not sure if we want to opt in to 123. That's a decision that the board will have to make, and we're looking at all the information. We don't have answers. We have more questions than answers. one of the questions that we have that's a concern of ours is if the county chooses not to opt in, does that have any repercussions to the RHA seeking 123 funds for projects in the unincorporated county? Because that will change the conversation dramatically. So I am unable to attend next Wednesday. I'm hoping to get some staff there to listen in.
Okay.
But if you could, if I can impose upon anybody that attends that meeting to listen kind of for that kind of language, that would be something that I think this board needs to know. Because the county will have to figure out the baseline. We'll have to figure out how we're going to create efficiencies in our land use process to meet whatever timeline they are. Because right now we're looking at it and thinking, I don't know that we're going to go down this road.
Well, and I think it's one thing probably too to think about that sense of urgency. Maybe you aren't able to do it right now. I know community development department has had some change. I think it's looking at some of that structure, but keeping in mind, could you opt in 24 or
Right.
you know, those kind of things. I'm sure that'll be part of the conversation that I can certainly look for information to provide back that. I can't imagine it's all your eggs in one basket. If you guys decide to opt out for 23, that you're permanently opted out.
I would
Right.
think not.
I would hope not,
Yeah.
but I understand the logistics and kind of some of the dynamics that your board might make a decision about, so.
Well, and it's also that we haven't, this is not a formal policy. We had a retreat last year, like I told you, and we really feel that our policy or our direction is to facilitate growth near the municipalities anyway, because that's where the transit is, that's where the centralized services are. You know, we're probably not gonna have a ton of big, big projects out in the county on non-centralized. So that's one reason. Yes, community development director needs to get hired so we can beef up our capacity. But the other reason is that we're not gonna be developing housing. We're clear on that. That's, we don't feel like that's our role. The RHA's role could be that someday, but then you all are doing, obviously with the spreadsheet, a great job of initiating projects. So there's this kind of Rubik's cube. And so we're saying, is it worth it to opt into 123 if that's not going to be our role anyway? So thanks for tracking on it.
Yeah, happy to gauge information and think about that too. Yeah, you guys, no problem.
And Nicole, thank you for your participation in that as well.
And Mark, I know has been
Okay.
engaged too. So we're all keeping each other in the loop where we can.
Okay, next item, Forest Service follow-up, Sarah.
We are rescheduling that meeting. So I don't have a lot to report on that front, except that we are now involving CDOT in that meeting as well. So have more details by next board meeting.
Okay, next item, presentations and engagement with non-RHA entities. We don't have anything on the agenda today. So member openings, I guess I start. I did get a tour of the Gage development. Mike Fouts gave me a call.
You didn't bring us.
No. Although Mike Fouts runs FCI and Mike's very interested in doing a tour with the RHA board.
Be good.
Right now, and when I did the site tour, it was a mess. And you need muck boots to get through the site. They've just been having quite a challenge with the weather. They actually almost lost a front end loader the day before, literally tipping over. They almost had a major incident. They didn't, thank God. And they're getting much better, as you would suspect, at assembling these things and figuring out how to truck these things literally across the street, across Escalante Drive from the old Native Roots site over. And instead of one truck, now they have two trucks, and they were setting, once they had it ready, they were setting units about every 40 minutes. And I was able to go in, and these things they're very impressive. I mean, it's not like you just put them on like a Lego set and you're done. I mean, you gotta run the electrical lines through the corridors and make sure the sprinkler systems are fixed. They're fully charged within the units, but they're not centralized hooked up until they come in. Everything's in the corridor. All the utilities are connected in the corridor, and that's where all the work is done. The units themselves are. And so, and as you think about a unit, you would think, okay, this box, I'll call it a box, is 10 feet by 70 feet. Okay, that's one unit. No, that's part of a unit with a corridor and part of another unit. Connecting another box offset, because you can see the variation in the exterior. These things are offset, but they have to be sequentially staged and sequentially placed to make it work. And it was, I asked the superintendent, you can tell this guy's been around the block, right? And he's probably his late 50s. He's been doing this since he was 12 years old. He's framed houses with his dad, right? So he said this is the best built unit he's ever seen. And when you think about the rigidity necessary to not only travel thousands of miles, but to be hoisted, placed. I toured and there are a few minor cracks, but they're very minor. And then where the units come together, literally, you have this thick wall, plus the rigidity of the insulation. They're very well constructed units. And so he said, once the site clears up a bit, he'd love to do a tour. And to your point, you were wanting to see, okay, let's see the innards, let's see how this thing works. They have their last phase that they're just starting excavation on. They may be holding off, but given the weather is coming in next week, right? But they figure they're going to hold off on that until they make sure that they have a site that they can work on and get prepared and go vertical. So I think we have a bit of time. We don't anticipate that until August on the very first units. So I think we're going to have an opportunity to get a tour, and I think you'd be impressed.
And I'd like to invite Homes Fund and Elizabeth Salkind and some of our other key partners. This is one of the first projects that I've been fortunate to be a part of. And creating rental restriction templates for this project. Elizabeth and her team, we are working through the processes right now that will align with the developer and the management company. We secured 14 of the 89 units to be rent restricted for 80% AMI to 120% AMI. And so we're working on their timeline to kind of gauge, is it building A and building B? Originally, we were going to do those units in building B and building C, but they may have an organization that's interested in master leasing the entire building C. And so it's leveraging us quicker to have to focus on building A and building B for the units. So, yeah. So we'll definitely have a ribbon cutting, but we'd like to do it too much.
They have already say master lease with whom?
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious.
But I don't know, time in August, September, might line up with some folks.
Right. Town of New Hampshire.
Rock Creek moving forward. It's kind of nice, the eggs and issues, Mark was the presenter for that. That created an interesting dialogue between him and Patrick Morrissey. And so the tribe has now, the tribal council has approved a congressional spending request. And the tribe would actually like to put together the five-plexes on the Rock Creek. And so we did a letter of recommendation as well to see if they can get funding to do that. But that would be an amazing partnership, bringing the tribe into, that's 49 units, but they would handle the five-plexes. So it's pretty exciting.
And just for those, for the benefit of those on the board and in the audience, tribe has the same issues as everybody else does. I mean, housing's a universal problem, and there are tribal council members that can't get to buy their own house, can't rent their own house, they're living with their kids. These are folks on the council, they're elected by the membership. So, it's acute for everybody. It's for the town, for the school district. It's the same thing. No different.
So that's a net new from when we met last week.
That's great.
It's exciting, but other than that, we're good. Oh, and it's not really RHA, but the town is going to be entering into an agreement with the school district initiative to buy the LTAC property. So that opens up a lot of opportunities in the coming years. That building has lived its life and it can come down, but it's probably a 2 to 3 year process to be able to figure out what that next step looks like. It could be anything from storefronts to housing to municipal buildings, fire department. It could be so many different things.
Yeah.
But just let you guys know that we've got a lot on our plate for cash.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
LaPlata County.
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, we've had a great conversation with Ignacio about Rock Creek. There's another round of ARPA funding that is tied to tribal budgets, I think is how I would say it. It's another round of funding. And so we've been in discussions about how to use it, and Ignacio approached us. And so we're talking about that and determining under how we would get an IGA. It's about 700,000. And so we're working that out, and this came out of a meeting that we had with Ignacio, and then you guys came to our meeting, I think it was last week, right? Or discussion time. So yeah, so we're in the detail phase of negotiating out, and would there be a chance to maybe have some employee housing? Lots of questions that we need to work out. So excited about that. You heard about Westside. And then this, I think just because, you know, part of the continuum of housing is people that are unhoused. We have on our agenda next week a letter of support to ratify for Moxie has a nonprofit called Community Investment Alliance that would like to seek congressionally directed funding in the tune of about, I think, 3.5 million. And what that would do, we have put aside, I think most of you know, $1 million to, in the closure of Purple Cliffs, $1 million on the table of our original ARPA funds for solution finding. And so what we're seeing, if we could braid some money to eventually have the community, would be the county, would be buying a building for transitional housing for people who are unhoused. And provide the necessary services, mental health, case management, everything. And so that CDS spending, John Whitney is the one that actually approached us about seeing if we would support it. I think it would make a dent. I think with unhoused, we're not going to see it all solved. Of course, I don't think anybody thinks that's the goal, but it would make a dent, we hope. So yay, Project Moxie and Community Investment Alliance that's the nonprofit part of Project Moxie. So we'll see how that goes. Anything else?
I have nothing else. Thank you.
City of Durango.
A couple things. I won't go over the route policy and the project with all of that because I already covered that. The Best Western project up of Highway 160, big milestone. Last week, the Planning Commission approved the major site plan application. So the project is moving forward. I had a meeting with the development team this week. We are working through the variety of funding stack for this project. It's about approximately $35 million to basically it'll rehab the existing 72-room hotel, and then they'll add 2 additional buildings behind the hotel for a total of 120 affordable units. That'll be the 30% AMI to 160% AMI. I'm sorry, 60, 160. Let's big AMI thing. 30 to 60% AMI. This is the largest 4% LIHTC project in this region. It is also the first hotel conversion project that CHAFA and LIHTC has dealt with in the state. So when we talk about funding capacity and expertise, there are a lot of players to make this project happen. But that was a big milestone with our planning commission last week.
Can I ask you a question? I have heard, and this is anecdotally, so take it for what it's worth. The CHAPA has been very hesitant to provide LIHTC funding for motel conversions across the state because many times they didn't consider, single unit housing as meeting the CHAPA criteria for LIHTC. But it sounds like this is disproving that.
Yes. This is disproving it, but like you said, all of the previous history on traditional LIHTC projects, it didn't meet that definition.
I bring this up because Scott Cox, who you met, at least via Zoom.
Oh, yes.
On that meeting that we had, tried to get that through in Crested View, and it was rejected by CHAPA saying we don't do that. Converting a motel.
Maybe they're expanding.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I certainly
housing
hope so.
market.
Exactly.
They're probably drying up on the other end of things
so,
because
yeah.
of rates. So you got to go somewhere and stay in business. I was curious, do you know what percentage that housing project takes care of those 30 to 60% in our community?
I I can answer it a little differently than probably how you've asked it.
Probably.
How many folks would be eligible to move into a project like that?
I wonder how many there's people in our community are at that 30 to 60%.
Yeah, so when Project Moxie was helping find the development team and the city put the hotel under contract, they had to do a market analysis study back in 2021. At that time, there were about 1,650 residents that would have qualified. Now, I didn't just break that down to households or how many
Yeah, I gotcha.
people. But that was in 2021. So if there was only 120 units and you've got 1,650, it gives you an idea. Of the
Yeah,
need.
not much.
Yeah.
Just like 10% something.
Areas that I know that.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's a big help for us, and just trying to navigate the congressional monies with HUD and federal guidance. And then potentially getting additional state monies on a project, and then potentially other funding sources. There are a lot of people that I talk to, not just one project, but we're trying to whittle down who's on those calls to make it more productive, make it more efficient. They still have about a $7.5 million gap when I talked to them this week. So what that means is they're looking to go to the Division of Housing to possibly borrow some funding, but they also got a low interest loan and they're looking for grant money. And so another unique one-off is, could they have Division of Housing potentially, instead of applying for a grant and having a loan, what if you just amend your contract on the loan and make it become a grant? And it, like, Division of Housing was I'm just like, what are you talking about? So then I threw a couple of my other ideas out there of how we could use the $3 million congressional monies, and TWG really liked some of the creative ideas that I'm suggesting. So we potentially have about a week and a half to 2 weeks to understand what Division of Housing, if they're going to make that decision, make the call or not, yes or no. It's impacting the investor side of the project. And with a $7.5 million funding gap, the investor pool has changed with the interest rates. So we're trying to leverage that debt ratio pretty quickly. And so creatively, I'm trying to come up with some solutions that the TWG was open to. So that's one complex project. Next week, we'll be releasing an RFP for the Twin Buttes Animas High School site, looking for affordable housing developer to build on the site where the school left and departed from. And then council will have a retreat recap. So city council had a 2-day retreat a couple of weeks ago. Kim would probably have talked about that if she was here today. And so we'll be doing a recap on the 21st during study session. I think that would be very informative for folks to stay in tune with. One of the highest priorities was housing, and they're potentially discussing a $4.2 million amount to look for housing sources to give. So it's a pretty big meeting. Let's stay tuned to that. The 21st.
That's it. Thank you very much. Hannah.
So we are applying for the CPF funding for the intersection of east intersection in Bayfield for a lighted intersection. So we've sent that to our senators and Congresswoman Tober. And it looks like we have support from CDOT. CDOT recognizes that we do need to get that signal up. That will increase our potential for housing on the east end of Bayfield. So we have, you are aware that Nicole sent the grant for, I'm not going to get the numbers here today. And for the Cinnamon Heights, we're really getting excited about that. We'll be talking with Lisa about, all the particulars on the deed and everything. Orchard, they're building 2 units. They're supposed to be, they're in a PUD, so we'll see how those price out. That is not done with any assistance. So we're hoping to kind of see what they price out as. So Orchard and Clover, it's just north of the primary school. It was a PUD, 14 units plus apartment complex or a condominium complex.
Katie, can I add something?
Nicole, is that you?
Yeah,
Speak up a little bit.
can you hear me?
You need to speak a little louder.
Hmm.
Hello,
Oh, no, can you hear me?
not the same.
Kind of.
Okay. I just wanted to, as part of the congressional funding that we're seeking for the intersection, I just wanted to give Commissioner Porter Norton and Chuck a heads up that I did also put in a request for a letter of support from the county commissioners. So there'll be two letters. They're pretty much the same letter. One's for the TPR and one's for Congresswoman Boebert. She requires two letters of support. So CDOT's provided one and we're asking the county for one. I think it'll be on your Tuesday meeting. So just a heads up.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're tracking that, Nicole. So it'll be agenda on Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah. So I just added one today and I worked with Mary because it's the same letter, but we just found out that we needed a second one for Congresswoman Boebert's request. So you'll see two from me.
Thank you. Anything else?
I have just one thing, maybe two. We're not doing policy updates as much as we used to, which is fine, but there is a House Bill 1190. And it's a right of first refusal bill that would essentially put in place, and not without its controversy, but put in place a right of first refusal for governments to put in a bid on multifamily housing. So if it goes up for sale, it would, it's apartments and all the multifamily. So that's on our radar screen. And we've been asked to support it and we talked about it at our board discussion time. There's an interesting bill that I just wanted you all to know about, which is hasn't been introduced yet, which would do a good thing, which is to find a way to solve a problem for mobile home parks that have water quality problems. That there's a provision that in the way it hasn't dropped yet, the draft, that would make counties have to take over these parks if under certain circumstances. So we're tremendously concerned about this bill. So not the part about improving water quality at mobile home parks, but the part that a county would automatically have to take on a park. And we're going to have a meeting with all the counties next week. So I'm sure we're going to have probably 64 counties in opposition to this. I did a back of the napkin calculation today on just one, and it's like 5 or 6 million right off the bat. But yet, how do we improve, like a la what's happening with Lightner Creek? How do we improve that situation and whose role is it? And, lots of discussion, but just if you hear chatter about this, and I don't know, when will they say municipalities need to take it over? That's what I'm wondering. So just want to put it out there, no scare tactics, but we're tracking on those two.
So CML had a really hard time supporting 1190 just because of the timeline and everything else. And looking for a way to opt out so that those that are in mobile home parks could sell without coming to the town. A lot of conversation about, 90 days. Well, you can't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
So
the timeline was a concern.
it was a
Yeah.
big concern.
Yeah, we're still looking at it too, in terms of any formal support for it. Yeah.
The only other bill I would mention that I just found out about, I wasn't tracking it, but I've got a connection now at the state who's in a new role as the executive director of public-private partnerships. And I didn't even know there was such a thing. I was like, glad I answered the telephone. But it was Senate Bill 23-001. So it's the first Senate bill of the year, titled Public-Private Partnerships for Affordable Housing. Senators Robert and Zenzinger and Representatives Byrd and Lucan supported it. It specifically is providing funding through the Department of Personnel and Administration, the DPA. CDOT falls underneath the DPA. And so I've done a couple of projects with CDOT in Summit County. And so CDOT has been working with the city on some creative ideas around housing. And so the DPA is the one that called me in her new role. And potentially getting additional funding. This particular bill would give them additional 13 million. And so we're working on some creativeness with CDOT on some ways to try and look at land that the state owns and trying to look at what their needs are for their headquarters, what are their needs for their staff, And then, of course, state agency on land falls in the jurisdiction of Lewis College as well. So there's some opportunities to get kind of create something. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. I wasn't tracking that one until they called me. And I think they're looking to spend the money, so.
Anything else? Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Great to see you at the home, Pat. You run a good meeting. Yeah, see you guys later. I do have 2 seconds. Yeah. To be honest. We've done it. Yeah.